I have three news stories for you. Firstly, on Friday, I told you about expected protests in Sudan on Saturday. What happened yesterday in Sudan? Large protests were held against civilian government. Who was backing these yesterday's protests? Secondly, last night I shared a picture due to which I faced lots of criticism. The picture was from Chifra town of Afar region. I have removed the picture, but who is in control of this key town, Chifra? Is TDF in control of Chifra? Or ENDF Afar forces are in control of Chifra? We'll talk about that. Lastly, doctors in Mekelle have protested. Doctors and other healthcare workers. They say they don't have any medicines, any medical supplies to treat patients. They have protested in front of WHO office. I'll show a video as well of protesting medical staff in Mekelle. First about Sudan. On Friday, I informed you that on Saturday protests were expected in Sudan because on Thursday, Abdul Fattah al-Burhan, head of Sudan's Sovereignty Council, Sudan's army chief, and his deputy Hamati held a meeting with PM Abdullah Hamdok. They asked PM Abdullah Hamdok to dissolve his cabinet and form a new government. Abdullah Hamdok reportedly rejected this proposal. Then we saw yesterday massive protests in Khartoum, Sudanese capital. Some factions and armed group who are aligned with Sudanese military, they held these protests. The protests were basically against civilian government of PM Abdullah Hamdok, and protesters chanted slogans against civilian government. They called upon army to seize power. Massive protests in Khartoum, in other parts as well, and some armed groups, they removed security barriers as well, placed in front of Sudan's presidential palace, and protests were held in front of Sudan's presidential palace too. So it was a sort of message from Sudanese military to Sudanese politicians that dissolve this government, that Sudanese military does not want to hand over the chairmanship of Sudan's Sovereignty Council. Message is very loud and clear. But what will PM Abdullah Hamdok do? Well, on Thursday, protests are expected in support of civilian government as well. So on Thursday, those factions, those groups which support PM Abdullah Hamdok, they are expected to protest. Meanwhile, yesterday, when protests were underway, US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken issued a statement in support of PM Abdullah Hamdok. US is backing PM Abdullah Hamdok's government. US wants Sudanese military to hand over the chairmanship of Sovereignty Council to Sudanese politicians, which was agreed by Sudanese military when the Sovereignty Council was formed in 2019, that for the first 2 years, military will be heading the Sovereignty Council. For the next 2 years, politicians will be heading the Sovereignty Council. Now it's politicians' turn to take over the leadership of Sovereignty Council, but Sudanese military does not want to hand over the chairmanship of Sovereignty Council. So political tensions persist in Sudan. Both parties, military and civilian politicians, they are sticking to their positions. Deadlock persists. Secondly, was Chifra. Last night I shared a picture with you, which was a mistake. My apologies to you. The picture was being shared by TPLF allied news sources as an evidence that TDF had entered Chifra town of Afar. The picture was from Chifra, but the picture has been identified. It showed some Amhara fighters in Chifra. So it wasn't showing TDF fighters in Chifra. I have removed the picture from thumbnail of that video. Does it mean that Chifra is under ENDF Amhara control? Who is in control of Chifra, this major town? Because most viewers criticized, who criticized this at Sajid, this news is fake. TDF is not in Chifra because this picture is not of TDF fighters. Well, official position of Tigray Defense Force is that they have entered Chifra, that they are inside Chifra. So far, we haven't seen any official statement from Afar regional government, from Ethiopian government as well. They haven't issued any official statement about Chifra so far. But activists backed by Amhara government, Ethiopian government, they are claiming that TDF has not entered Chifra so far. I wouldn't be surprised if Chifra is under TDF. TDF was pressing towards Chifra. Chifra was under intense artillery shelling. I think I've been updating you as well that both Chifra and Iva, these borders were under intense shelling. And even Amhara news sources, ENDF, they were also confirming that TDF was trying to move towards Chifra. So if Chifra has been taken by TDF, it wouldn't be a surprise for anyone. Surprise would be if TDF takes Ethiopia-Djibouti road, which is far away from Chifra. Lastly, was doctors have protested in Mekelle in front of WHO office. Doctors say they have nothing to treat patients. Medicines are expired and they are treating patients with expired medicines. Medicines are not being allowed into Tigray from Afar. I informed in a previous video that 9 trucks carrying medicines were stuck in Afar. They were not being allowed to enter Mekelle from Afar. Have a look at the protest of doctors in Mekelle in front of WHO office. Thank you for watching.
Terus, ada satu